Hello there ladies and gentlemen, time for another review. Today we'll be looking at the Audeze LCD-4, a headphone which at the same time makes me quite happy for Audeze, but at the same time quite sad about, well, you'll see. First off, the box is what I think is standard issue with Audeze these days. Nice big hefty box, sort of OtterBox kind of thing, very sturdy. Comes with a tray for the headphone, which is nice because you can place them in that when you're not using them, whether in here or not, because it has sort of feet on there, which is better than placing them on a stand for the headphone because the gravity will not pull the headband. Comes with a warranty card with the date for production and so on, which is good. And weirdly it comes with a pair of cotton gloves for handling the headphones if you feel like being that posh. Seems a bit silly, but I think it's a statement, which is fine. Probably for people at trade shows and such to be able to handle them without smudging the chrome. All fine, doesn't matter. Cable is different from the usual. Very pretty blue cable. It doesn't really match the headphone very well, but it's a very sort of thick, good quality cable made by Locust Audio. Only thing really against it, the cable itself is very good quality, but and the splitter is kind of cool, I guess. It says Audeze on it, custom made, I'm assuming. But the top here, they've used some shrink flex in the same size as, not same colour as the cable, but it's stiffer and it feels a bit plasticky and cheap, to be honest. The connectors are, I'm not going to say crap, but they are the cheapest kind you can get. It's basically I think these might be Neutrix version of them, but I'm not sure. These are, you can get them for like $5 at tops from eBay and the like. It's the bog standard of Mini XLR. It's nothing fancy. I'd at least have expected Rian connectors or something like that. The other end, you get either these came with a Neutrix XLR, 4-pin XLR, which is fine, nothing fancy, and the connectors, I swapped it for one of connectors I've left over from an earlier Audeze headphone from an LCD-3, which is this 1/4-inch jack. Again, I'd like to see something a bit more interesting, a bit prettier, like Furtek connectors or the like, but fair enough. Gets the job done, it works well, it's sturdy, fine. Good cable, way better than the earlier ones. The headphones themselves, the build quality is as Audeze's are. It's an Audeze, it's built like a tank, it's what you expect. You can beat a burglar with it and he'll be worse off than the headphone. Chrome bits here and on the side, but I think it's Coca-Cola wood they used on here, which looks very pretty, dark sort of reddish brown colour. Beautiful wood, nice finish, very sort of, I don't know if it's waxed or what it is, but it's not high polish, but it's not really smooth and soft. Pretty wood. Standard here, the pads are sort of like on the LCD-3 but a bit nicer, but they do attach in a different way where they are glued onto a piece of felt here, which is really annoying because it means if you pull them off or somehow damage them, you'll need to ship the headphone back to Audeze to have those replaced. You can't just buy new pads and put them on there. That is really annoying because they feel like you could quite easily pull them off on accident if you weren't careful. Sides here, standard block and gimbal here, but with a nicer logo on them. Headband is a new version which has carbon fibre here and then a separate leather strap under here. This distributes the weight better, making these a lot more comfortable than earlier Audeze headphones, and in general I think I can wear these maybe twice as long as earlier headphones before they start developing. They do start developing that hot spot on top of your head, but it's not as bad. They generally feel a lot better on your head than earlier Audeze models, so that's good. So build, stellar. Only thing really is that thing with the way the pads are attached. Now the sound is where this gets interesting, because these cost $4,000, so you'd expect a lot. And honestly, knowing Audeze and the pricing relative to performance, I wasn't expecting the world, but I did expect a bit more than what I got. What's good? The resolution is, I'd say, probably on par with an HD800 and the Focal Utopia. So it's where it should be. Really, I don't think we can do much better. I think at this point it's probably the recordings that are the limit more than the headphone itself. The diaphragms are thinner than a human blood cell or something like that, so they should perform, and they do in that regard. The bass is very well controlled, as they should be with an autodynamic. Nothing really to come at there. It's probably some of the best controlled and best detailed bass I've ever heard out of a headphone and in general. It's not as massive or hard-hitting as a dynamic headphone, but I believe that to a large degree with the dynamics come from a level of lack of control and distortion, making it sound bigger. But they do hit fairly well, and in general, good amount of bass. I think the bass is about as neutral and as good as it gets. The mids start well, very well controlled, again, good quality, so on, but they roll off, and they roll off a lot. They roll off right up until the beginning of the treble area, the sort of lower treble area, and they roll off by about 20 dB at that point, which is a lot. For reference, the HD800 in the mid-range up to the treble range is solidly around -7 to 10 decibels, somewhere around there as far as I remember. So this is more than twice that. And this means that the mid-range, as it does with a lot of Audeze headphones to be fair, but this is steeper than they usually are, sort of gets a bit dull sounding, sort of a bit dark sounding. It sort of pulls vocals and so on a bit back, making it not as in your face, if you will, which can be good for some people. It makes it a bit more relaxed, a lot of things get more comfortable sounding. So that is, whilst I don't personally like it, it's not necessarily a negative to everyone. What I don't like about the mid-range especially is the fact that the early mid-range is not as, because of that roll-off, is so steep, it never really gets exciting in the mid-range. It doesn't get that full punchy oomph you really want from a big headphone like this, from an Audeze with that warm sound. You don't get the feeling that it's warm sounding, it sort of sounds a slight bit dull. But it isn't so bad before I start comparing it to other things. On its own it sounds good, pleasant, comfortable, sort of the Audeze sound really. But where it then again deviates is in the treble, around up till about 7 to 10 kilohertz from the part where it rolled off. The present region sort of, that shoots back up again to around the 0 dB mark, the same as the bass, meaning that sounds way louder than the mid-range. But which like the HD800 does that as well, but it does it the entire way up, making it have that sort of sharp, crisp, brilliant sound, which sort of accentuates details, gives it a large sound stage, and makes it overall a sort of very present, in-your-face, sort of aggressive sound. These don't do that somehow. They sound bright, but they don't sound sharp, meaning that they never overstay their welcome. They never get annoying to listen to, which you think is good, which to some extent it is. That means if you want to just lean back, relax and listen, that's good. But the problem is, if you really want the headphone to get sort of, again, be present, sort of more engaging, you tend to turn it up because the mid-range rolls off, so you want that back up there. And normally that'll be fine, because the bass is fine for going up, that doesn't really harm it, it's fine, and the mid-range going up, fine. Treble, you don't notice it because it isn't that sharp, but it goes up as well, but it goes up a lot more than the mid-range because it's already very high. And this means that over time, even though you don't necessarily notice it, you start to get listening fatigue, and it starts to get annoying. And when you are done listening after a couple of hours, if you listen for that long, you'll notice that you're listening a lot louder than you normally would be, and that's bad for your ears. What this means overall is these come off as somewhat bright sounding, but not in an uncomfortable way, but in a way that is sort of more sneaky, if you will, because it's not really bright, it's still sort of rounded off, and I'd almost call it dull to some extent, which means it's relaxing. But it still, in the end, can give you some listening fatigue if you want to turn up the volume. But if you listen quietly, it's okay. But then you sort of lack a bit of engagement, at least I feel you do. So overall, compared to the HD800, the HD800 sounds much more there. It sounds much clearer, much more crisp, much more sort of engaging, very much more interesting. And the soundstage on these, by the way, because of that treble being not as crisp, somehow it's detailed, but it's just not as crisp sounding as many dynamics are. The soundstage is there, but it's not as big or as well defined as it is on a lot of dynamics. Meaning that your placement is not as precise, the room doesn't sound as big, room reverberations and that sort of thing, there's not as much information there really as there can be. But for an Audeze it's good. It's about the same, I'd say, as probably the LCD-3, a bit better than the LCD-3 at that point. So really, it's a very good headphone. It's the best headphone Audeze has ever made, but for $4,000 it's just not good enough. Had this cost what the Audeze LCD-3 does, had it replaced the LCD-3, I'd be impressed with it. For Audeze's standards, really. I'd be impressed with it, but as it stands, whilst it's good, it's not reasonable to sell headphones at this price. It's the same with a lot of the new headphones in this price range. It's not okay unless your performance keeps up. So long as the performance only compares to previous flagships at the $600 mark, pushing it that high is not okay. If you take the build quality up, fair enough, you can increase the price maybe to $2,000, $2,500, something around there, but this amount is just silly. So overall, I have to say, if you're really into the Audeze's sound, I recommend these. These are the best Audeze's ever made, by a long shot. Definitely, get them. But if you're looking for just a headphone and you're not entirely sure that the Audeze is necessarily exactly what you want, I'd say give them a listen, give them a try. I'd say they're some of the best headphones, if not the best headphones at that price point at the moment. I like them more than the Utopia and more than the Hi-Fi Man HE1000 Mark II, to be honest, which is, to be fair, a bit cheaper. But I like them more than those, but it's still just not, it's not okay at that price point. So, overall, good headphone, but things it doesn't do well with are the things that the HD800 does well with. Acoustic music, symphonic music, classical, that sort of thing. Anything that's sort of really trebly, crystal clear sounding, you want a lot of information. It's not really what this does well. What it does well is warm jazz, sort of the swampy rock, sort of psychedelic rock, everything that's sort of really just cozy music. It's a good sort of lean back in your chair and relax headphone. So yeah, I think I've said what I need to say about these for now. If you have any questions about them, feel free to ask me. For now, I think I'll be going in a different route. I'm quite wary of these super high-end models. But yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you have anything you specifically want me to look at, feel free to tell me and I'll see what I can do. Probably I have to buy things myself and I'm a student, so sort of limited. Yeah, thank you for watching and have a good one.